I'm crashing Seed Consultants' annual winter meeting here in Columbus. Ty Higgins with the Ohio AgNet and Ohio's Country Journal. Meeting for the first time, Bill McDonald. And Bill, want to talk to you about soybean selection this year. Weed control, as we know, is more and more important every single year here in Ohio. But as far as selecting soybeans for the 2018 growing season, I think it's safe to say there's more going into the thought process as farmers across Ohio begin to make those choices.
Yeah, as we go along, we're getting a lot more resistance to different weeds, and so we've had to go to another platform. We're looking at maybe Liberty beans, maybe Extend beans. There's just a lot of choices out there for farmers to make, and which way do I go? I mean, what are the yield differences? What's going to work in my operation? And that's, in the end, that's what the farmer has to do, decide what works for his operation.
So tell me about performance. What kind of drag, if any, are we seeing in 2017 with the Extend beans?
I'm not seeing any drag with the Extend beans. They're evolving as they come along. The yields are increasing every year with them, but as far as comparing them to a Liberty bean, comparing them to a Roundup Ready 2 bean, I don't see any yield drag with them.
And speaking of Liberty, Matt Hutchison taking on that with us here today. And Matt, I asked Bill about drag as far as Extend. How did Liberty beans perform in 2017 in fields across Ohio?
So Liberty beans continue to perform well, competitive with other traded varieties. And this year, in our tests, we did have Liberty glyphosate tolerant and Extend beans all in the same test. And a third-party integrated ag services had their own trials where everything was mixed. So there is data to back up the field performance with comparisons and test plots that show they're comparable. It's really the bean that you want to pick that works well for your area. The trait does not necessarily mean it's going to be better or worse or there is any yield drag.
I know a lot of farmers out there are thinking about going the Liberty route and wondering what they might need to think about next, or as they prepare to make that switch, what they need to know. What's the first thing you would tell a farmer that's thinking about taking on Liberty in 2018?
I think it's important to know that there's some differences between when you switch from one herbicide program to another. There's some key differences. Carrier volume is one important thing. You need to be at least, it's recommended at least 15 gallons of the acre of water, but probably need to be at 20 to make sure we get that coverage. It's also important the time of day. You don't want to spray too early in the morning or late in the evening when there's cloudy weather or darker weather. You want to do it in the heat of the day when the sun's out, the plants are growing. You want to make sure you get good coverage. So there's several differences between spraying Liberty and spraying glyphosate, but there's just some attention to detail that needs to be paid to make sure we get good control of the weeds.
Bill, on the Extend side, obviously you mentioned how well they performed in 2017. Didn't go without making some headlines across the Midwest with some dicamba drift, and that included some new rules and regulations for 2018. What do farmers need to know that maybe they don't know going into 2018 about Extend and that technology?
Well, as you say, it's still evolving as to where we're going to end up settling out. But right here today, the wind has to be moving to spray Extend to start with, between 3 and 10 mile an hour. If there is a sensitive target downwind, you have to hold back a 110-foot boundary. That sensitive area could be something as simple as a fence rail, maybe with a pine tree in it or a mulberry tree or something. That is a sensitive crop. So even though there is nothing planted in the other field, that fence row could be considered a sensitive area, and you'll have to maintain that 110 foot off of that. And then there's always the issues of tank cleanouts, whether you use Extend, Liberty, or Roundup, one will kill the other. So we have to be very, very careful with tank cleanouts now.
Communication was something we talked about a lot in 2017 as far as dicamba usage around the Midwest, and obviously as farmers make their decisions for 2018, do you think some more conversations are going on with their neighbors about what might they be doing in 2018 and maybe get a conglomerate of neighbors to kind of get on the same page?
Yeah, there's going to be some farmers that will plant one or the other just because my neighbor's doing that. and my neighbor's going to be using Extend, so I need to use Extend. That's not the right reason to make that choice. The choice should be weed control and what is going to work best in my farming practice. You know, based on your genetic package or maturity, you know, the Liberty bean might be the best, the Extend bean may be the best. It's what's going to work for you. What are my weed problems? We got to figure that out, and we can move on from there.
A ton of great agronomic advice being given at Seed Consultants winter meetings all over Ohio over the next month. And Matt, when you talk with farmers at these meetings, what are some of the questions you get, and what are some of the things you're sharing with them as you look at your test plots from last year?
So we have several topics to talk about this year. One key topic that we're going to hit on is planting depth in corn. We saw some issues this year with corn that was planted a little too shallow. We've done some tests in our test plots on that, so that's one thing we're going to cover. We have seen some disease in soybeans last year. We're going to touch on that, discuss some of the issues we've seen where we see fungicides help out and maintain those high yield potential of the varieties. We're also going to hit on some of the things we're discussing today, talk about different options, different herbicide programs, and what it takes to control those tough to control weeds that are starting to develop resistance.
Matt Hutchison along with Bill McDonald from Seed Consultants. If you want to check out those winter meetings, a full schedule is online at seedconsultants.com. From Columbus, I'm Ty Higgins on the Ohio AgNet. We'll see you down the road.